All right. Welcome back to another episode of our podcast, listeners. This is once again SOS Standards of Safety with your two hosts, Dave Moore and Corey. We've got a special guest for you here today, Chance Roberts. He's going to tell us a little bit about his background, his journey through safety, and a couple of other interesting facts about him. He's been on other podcasts, has been interviewed. He's done a couple of webinars. He's presented on stage at student chapters with the ASSAP. He's he's in the food industry with 3 locations. We'll get to talk about that and how his travels are. He's written 1 book, in the process of 2 or 3 more, and he's also been on an audience as motivational coach and speaking. So, welcome, Chance. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, guys, for having me. I've been looking forward to this, and now we're here. So I don't know how motivational I am, but I do try to. So I'm glad to be here. Thanks, guys.
You're
Yeah,
welcome. Welcome.
I think after we start talking, I think the listeners are going to go, yeah, he's pretty motivated. So obviously you're very humble, but we're going to get into your story and talk a little bit about each part of the stages of your life and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I'm excited. So sorry, Corey, go ahead.
No, you're good, Dave. So, yeah, Chance, start off. Tell us a little bit about your journey as a safety professional, not only in the food manufacturing industry where you're at now, but just a little brief background of where you started and where you're at now.
Yeah, so I grew up on a small farm, a couple hundred-acre farm in southern Oklahoma. So my dad did that. Uh, we had beef cattle, so that's what we raised more of a hobby kind of second job kind of thing. Dad and I did that growing up. I mean, he had a full-time job as a maintenance manager for Michelin Tire Corporation there in Ardmore, Oklahoma, and so we did that on the side. Uh, so growing up, Dad instilled in me a very strong work ethic. I think I was like one of the last ones of my friends to ever get any type of gaming console and stuff like that. So, we spent a lot of time working out on the land, and I definitely have come to appreciate that over the years. But that's kind of where I get the want to, the drive, the work ethic from both my parents there. I have a twin sister as well, and
Interesting.
she's probably the more motivational one out of the two of us. She's awesome. I am 10 minutes older, so I am
Okay.
bigger brother. Um, I kind of let her lead the way in case unless it's a serious situation. But so she acts like the older sister most times, but I am the older one.
That's all women, ain't it? No
Yeah,
matter no matter
exactly.
their age, they always know better.
Exactly. So, um, but my dad, he kind of talked to me about safety related things. He was the safety representative for his crew and shift at Michelin for a long time. And so he kind of planted that bug in my ear, but I was more interested in sports and all that. My sister and I were black belts in Taekwondo, so my parents drove us, around getting to do that, and also all kinds of different sports. So a big shout out to my parents for driving us all around the country to do that. But um, he always planted that bug and safety kind of he was in my ears talking about things like that. Well, it never really hit home until I got into college, and still didn't really know what I wanted to do. I went in to be a computer programmer. Decided that wasn't right for me, but I went to serve on a mission trip to China with really 5 of my really closest friends. And while I was over there, I just saw kind of a blatant disregard for the safety of the workers over there.
Not to
Um,
interrupt, what year was that?
That was 10 years ago. It's been 10 years since I've been over there.
So
Yeah,
2013, huh?
yeah.
Okay.
And so, they were wearing straw hats instead of hard hats with people working above them. They were wearing
Wow.
Crocs, flip-flops, in construction zones. They had a really large open manholes that, 4 people could fit on at one time,
National
and they
Nap
would be
Time.
taking naps beside them during national nap time. So, I mean, with
National Nap. How does that work?
yeah, so and they called it national. I mean, the people we were with, I don't really technically know that it was all across China, but from 12 to 1, the business kind of shut down, and people took a nap. And so, um,
Huh. So
it
did they do a typical 8 hour workday too? Then what's their work hour days?
really, man, I didn't pay enough attention to that, to be honest with you. I couldn't tell you. I would probably suspect more. It just seemed like people were working more,
Yeah.
now that I kind of think back on it. But um, one time in particular, the one I'm talking about, it was a sewer system manhole, and they were. I have pictures of it, but they were laying within a couple feet of this manhole, 3 guys, and there was no guards or barriers or anything like that. And I walked up as they're taking a nap and looked down in
Wow.
it, and it was like a river, raging river of sewage beneath
Sewage.
there, right? That if
Woo.
you get, I mean, you're drowned. I mean, as soon as you fall in there, right? So, um, it was things like that it kind of made me feel like, that was what God was telling me, what I need to do when I got back. So, um, I got
So
back. Oh, yeah, go
so
ahead.
yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. So this mission trip was actually through your church, or
It was through a student organization. We The organization on campus was called the Baptist Collegiate Ministries,
Hmm.
and
okay.
they worked with a partner organization, and I can't say their names, but they worked with this partner organization that sent teams, of college students during summertime through, all these different places. And so, that's how I got hooked up with them, was through the Baptist Collegiate Ministries. They're, at Southeastern Oklahoma State University, which is my alma mater.
And so this mission trip wasn't like to go around and spread the word of God, get people baptized, maybe help build churches. You were actually there to see uh, the workforce, or
No, we went as
how'd you turn into that? Like
yeah,
watching them work and on top of
yeah.
open
So
sewage.
yeah, we went as students, and we went from 8 to noon every day. We had class except for Sunday. And then after that, we would go to 3 major college campuses in the city that we were in, and the guys really hung out around the basketball courts because that's where all the college guys hung out. And so that was our best way to, um, talk about Jesus, while we were there. We couldn't open conversation, so they had to initiate the conversation. We could get creative with that, but that's kind of how it started. But as you're traveling I mean, it's a lot of walking. You're walking, 10 miles a day, stuff like that, because of just the congested traffic. So you'd also take like, public transportation,
Mm.
obviously, and stuff like that. But as you're walking past construction zones and stuff like that.
Mm.
And it's just kind of like, it's too obvious not to tell. I mean, even people that didn't really have a safety background were pointing this out. I mean, that's how obvious it was, right? And we're there to, spread love, and
Right. Right.
that is part of loving people, right? Is them working safely. So, um, it's, as it was just blatantly obvious, to the point where, I mean, we were all noticing it. So that's kind of how that correlated, I guess, is just walking around from
Wow.
campus to campus and seeing
Yeah.
construction projects
That's
and
the.
stuff.
Okay, gotcha. So now you were saying you did that trip, and now you're on your way back.
No, I was just going to say that's impressive. I mean,
Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
you think of China and just how strict they are, and like you said, you had to like wait until they kind of brought up the topic of religion and God and stuff like that. Um, I can imagine it was a little nerve wracking because I mean, over there, different laws, it's communist, and and watching what you say and what you do, and then of course seeing how the workers, how their environment was, yeah, they had to, you know, especially being so young in college and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, and kind of coming from, you know, uh, the South, like you said, and then going over there, and I mean, they had to be a culture shock, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, I'm going from
Yeah,
a
yeah,
town of 20,000 people to 17 million. So
Ooh.
it was definitely a culture shock. And I was the tallest on my team, and so whenever we were in busy locations, I kind of would be able to watch over everybody, because I went with a group of it was 3 guys and 3 girls, and so whenever we were in congested areas and stuff, I could kind of watch because I was taller. And
yeah.
we did go through pretty rigorous training before we went over
What to
there.
do, what
That
not to
kind of
do, and all
prepared
that.
us for
Yeah,
kind of worst case
yeah.
scenario type situations
Wow.
and stuff
So
like
so
that.
let's get into your book.
Mhm.
So tell us a little
Yes,
bit
sir.
about your process and what did you see in safety that hasn't been written about. We all have read books. We all know about how many safety books out there. What made you go? Here's a gap that I need to fill, and kind of walk us through actually how you started and with the book and how it went.
hmm Yeah, so I've been in the industry now about 10 years, with different areas and things like that. So over that kind of 10-year time period, there was a lot of times where I would get different craft employees and like maintenance guys, line workers, depending on, I mean, frac job guys, mechanics, stuff like that, just depending on whatever industry I was in. They were interested in safety, and they were always asking me like, hey, how do I get into safety? What's the best route? I don't have a degree. Well, what can I do? I have these certifications, but I don't have a degree. And I really struggled to point them towards one publication or book to really help them. I would give them different resources I had put together over the last 10 years to kind of answer that question. And then I kind of just got tired of sending all those different resources and was like, hey, it would be really nice if there was one, resource that could assist these people. And it doesn't have to be incredibly in depth, but just something that provides these resources and talks about a little bit more what it's like to get into safety, what you can
Mm-hmm.
expect, some of the pros and cons, because safety is not for everybody. It can be a thankless career. There's a lot of times where you don't know that you've made an impact on a person, and you may never know, but you have that opportunity to daily. And so I wanted to be able to provide some insight into what it's like to be a safety professional, what you can expect, but then also give resources to help guide those that are interested in the field.
So, what's the name of your book, and where can our listeners get it?
It's called The Beginner's Guide to the Environmental Health and Safety Profession, and it's exclusively through Amazon. Um, I I wrote it to really talk to multiple different scenarios. So I've partnered with a couple colleges to where they use it in their programs. The University of Findlay in
Wow.
Findlay, Ohio is one of them, and then the University of Central Oklahoma in Edmond, Oklahoma. And so shout out to them, thank you to them for partnering with me. But um, yes, it's exclusively through Amazon. I've got a couple
Yeah.
copies too I can send out if, if somebody wants them, but
Okay.
that's where it's available.
So you heard it here. If you want a copy of his book, just drop a comment and we'll get one sent out to you.
No, we
Appreciate
talked
that chance. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you.
No, you're fine.
So how long did it take you to, how long did it take you to write the book? And like did you resource it? This is just coming from all the people asking you how to get in. So you already knew like a lot of what you wanted to talk about.
Yeah,
Because like we talked
exactly.
about earlier, did it really take you just a weekend to write this book?
Yeah, it did. So, my wife, she was studying for the CPA or a portion of the CPA exam. She's an assistant controller for the Chickasaw Nation Industries, and so she was working or she was studying for that, excuse me. And then it was in the winter. We have a small farm here, about 8 acres. Actually, we're selling it, so if anybody wants to buy it. But we have a small farm right now,
This
and
You got
podcast
so
real
does
estate agents out there
books,
listening?
yeah.
lands, you
So
name it.
so if you're looking for 8 acres in Oklahoma, yeah, exactly. So I kind of caught up around the land. It was snowing outside, really cold, winter, and so I really didn't have. It was a weekend, so I didn't really have much to do, and I was like, well, there's no better time to try and sit down and see how much I can get get accomplished of this. And at first I never really thought I was going to turn it into a book. The idea wasn't
Mm-hmm.
to turn it into a book. It was more of just putting resources together. But then as I started writing it, I was like, well, it flows like a book, so maybe this could be a book. And so I really, yes, it took me a weekend to write, but I had spent years, you know, through the people's questions and everything, researching everything that I was going to put into this book. So that made it a lot easier to write, was just having those questions that people had asked and having researched all this before. Um, and so what I did is I really just made an outline on a Word document and outlined sections of specific questions I had and made sections. And then I just went back through and filled it in with content. And then I tried to be as personable as I could, add my own stories, and then speak to a level to where you don't have to have extreme, safety, environmental health and safety knowledge or any at all to really understand what I'm trying to convey in the book. I tried not to use a lot of acronyms and stuff like that, just because I know that, like when my wife tells me acronyms, in the finance industry, I'm just like, hey, hold on, like I have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
So,
Your Till, your Respa. What?
exactly. So, I tried to write it in like an easy to follow, understand type way, and but yes, it did. It took a weekend and to what I did, I used Fiverr. So Fiverr.com, where you can hire freelancers and stuff like that. Hired a guy to proofread it and give his feedback, and he actually had a safety background. And and then I hired someone else to make the cover art of the book, and to format it into like an Amazon KDP style for print. And then I created an Amazon KDP account, and I put everything in there and published the book. So
Wow. Well, that's cool. You got me wanting to write a book now. But
do it. I encourage
yeah.
everybody to.
Well,
Yeah, for
I've
sure.
done an ebook, but that's as
Okay.
far as I've got with it. I didn't. I've heard of this KDP, and I tried to transfer that ebook into that and see if I might be able to sell it for like $2.99. I mean, it
Yeah,
was a
well,
cheap little
con
ebook, nothing
congrats
serious.
on starting that. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment in itself, and you might look into someone on Fiverr to restructure that into a KDP type
Hmm.
print, and then I mean, I'm happy to walk you through, whatever help you need with that. So
Awesome. We might do that and look into it. We'll use those proceeds to promote this podcast.
there you go.
So, you mentioned, people are asking you, how do I get into safety? And I know Dave and I have been through this a lot. My question to you is, what's the first thing, now that you've been doing this for a long time, people come up to you, hey, I want to get into safety. what's the first thing what's your first response? How do you respond to that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Why?
Yep. That's our,
That that's
why. Why do you want to get into safety? What do you
Mm-hmm.
actually think
mhm,
safety is about? Walking around pointing, or,
exactly.
a lot of people think, so I got a welding background. I used to do shutdowns with power plants and
Okay.
refineries. And when I got into safety, everybody kind of make fun of me a little bit. And I say, look, man, I work from here up now.
Hmm.
You still work from here down. So don't blame me for your poor life choices. But I made a career change, and my career change started from doing a pipeline.
Okay.
I saw some 45, 50-year-old welders. They were just beat down. And when I did that pipeline, I was probably 32, 33,
Hmm.
30. I can't remember, but somewhere in that age. And it's like, I don't want to continue welding if I want to look like that in the next 10
Right.
years, So, but yeah, I wanted to ask that to you because you said people came up to you,
Mm-hmm.
and I was curious if you had the same thoughts. Dave and I have had this. Dave and I used to work together out in
Right.
Ohio, and we used to have that conversation all the time. This person wants to get into safety. We like, okay, what do you think there is? He
Yeah.
goes, I don't
No,
know. Let
and
me go
that's just
ask.
it. They,
And
yeah,
they think
they see us
that we
walking
don't do
around,
nothing.
Yeah.
maybe
You
take
know,
Yeah.
some pictures, some notes, and stuff like that, and they go, "I want to do that," but they have no idea what the actual safety person does and what they're responsible
Mm.
for. Things like that, and then yeah, I mean, I'd get that all the time, and still do. How do I get into safety? Well, there's a couple routes, but then, like you said, my first question is why? Why do you want to get into safety?
Mm.
And usually it's that kind of giggle. Well, I just want to walk around. Okay, you need to really do your homework because once you get into that field, you're going to find out I
Right.
I don't like this. I want to go back to turning a wrench or something like that. It's a lot less complicated.
Hmm.
because yeah, and to chance your point, it's a very thankless job. We do so much on a day to day behind the scenes that may have changed the work process or got somebody a new tool, or actually stopped a job and had to regroup and rewrite a whole MOP because we found something, and we don't ever get
Mm-hmm.
those acknowledgments, But
Right.
that's, to me, I like that. I like knowing that it
Yeah.
feels like the little guardian angel. Nobody can see you,
Right.
but we're protecting you. Don't worry
Right.
about it. That I like that feeling that you have. Well, going back to you a little bit here, you've so with your college background and all your sports that you've done, going to being the tallest in your missionary group, and already having that protective looking over feel to you, anyways. It's almost like your whole life you've kind of been bred to do public speaking anyways. You've been in the public's eye for a long time. All your sports, you probably had to say hi to tons of strangers in the audience. It's,
Hmm.
they're there to see you and the team, and you don't know who they are. So getting to your first stage, your first speech, do you remember how you felt? Were you nervous? Did you stumble your
And four were
words, or was it
family.
like six people?
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
exactly right. Um, man, I always get nervous. I think that's part of being a human. I think everybody gets nervous if they say they don't. It's hard for me to believe that. But
Right.
um, you know, I I've always been scared of it, but I've always been decent at it. And so really, I didn't do much public speaking until I got to college. And then I took a class on public speaking. There was a required class. And I made the highest grade that the professor had ever given in that class. And she asked me to be a public speaker in this competition, college wide, and other colleges were coming to. Now, about me, if it's something I'm passionate about, I can be a very good public speaker.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not passionate about it, I'm not. I'm not good at it. That's me personally. That's how I am, and so I respectfully declined that because they were going to give us a random topic, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to
Yeah.
speak about something that I cared about and was passionate about. Well, we had to fundraise for the mission trip. So a year after that is really when I honed in kind of my public speaking skills, and that was speaking in front of churches. Um, and so it was small churches, it was large churches. I mean, small as 25 25 members, all the
Wow.
way up to a couple thousand. So,
Wow.
you kind of get, and obviously I was passionate about that, and I had a couple team members who also, were up there on stage, discussing what we were going to do, what we were planning, how the funds were going to be used, and then what we did is we promised them that we would, report back once we returned back to the United States. So not only did we do that to begin with, but we also went back and spoke to them publicly again, just to let them know how their funds were used, how many conversions there were, seeds planted, just different things like that. So that's really where I kind of, I would say, became more okay with it. Lost a lot of the nerves. Again, depending on the audience, I still get pretty nervous, especially like at these conferences, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
there's professionals in there that have been in the field 40 years, you know what I mean? And so
Mhm.
you're not always the smartest person in the room. And you've got these guys who have difference of opinions, but I mean, they're all respectful at the end of the day, and we all have different niches or areas that we have a lot of experience in. And so it's kind of just like thinking to yourself, well, yeah, these people have a lot more experience, but do they have experience in what you're talking about specifically? And
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't negate what you've learned throughout your career, and and sometimes it opens great conversations, right? Disagreements
Yeah.
open, great conversations, and move thinking forward. So um, it's the newer kind of thing is podcasts and webinars. So getting used to that has been was a challenge in the beginning, but I work remotely now, so I'm in meetings and presentations remotely like this all the time now. So I've become a lot more accustomed to this, but it took a little bit more time to get accustomed to this style than presenting in person. And I worked at a contractor management software company for a little while, and we had to give pre-sales presentations on like how can our software benefit your company, right? So I gave presentations to many Fortune 500, 100 companies that were interested in these software, presentations to their CEOs, CFOs, COOs. I mean, you name it, they were in the room. And so that really helps to alleviate pressure
Well,
moving
yeah.
forward. Is you when you've talked to like CEO level management at these major companies, right? So that helped a
Wow.
lot in
Yeah.
itself too.
Okay. So going back to your father, are your mom and dad, are they grandparents now? You and your wife got kids or what?
Not yet.
No? Okay.
So
I'm
we're
just curious if they're going to be taking your grandkids around in sports like they did you and your sister, you know?
yeah. So we that's why we're moving. We're moving about an hour south of where we're at right now, and
Closer to Texas.
Don't get him
closer to
started.
Texas, right? Yeah, we'll
That's
be
my home state,
halfway in,
by the
but
way. So,
we'll be halfway in between.
yeah.
We're halfway in between Dallas and Oklahoma City, essentially, off of I-35.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna move down there pretty close to my parents, and so I can help on the farm and everything like that. And we do plan on having kids, Lord willing. So that is in the cards, but we will kind of wanted to get moved down there, and this move will put us closer to both sets of grandparents. So my wife's parents, my in-laws, and then also my parents. And so
Yeah.
strategically, it makes sense. This place has been good to us, but
Cool.
it'll be nice to move back down there.
Okay. Well, welcome closer to Texas. We'll accept you. You know, you sound like good people, so we need that definitely. All the road rage mess that's happening in the Dallas area right now, I don't have no idea what's going on with that. But with your dad being part of the safety team, and he was with Michelin for a long time, and you hear all kind, and I'm assuming it's the tire shop, Michelin.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Tires blowing up, having the cages, people getting injured from inflating tubes too much, and tires rolling off and crushing people. Growing up, did your dad ever witness anything like that and talk to you about it at all? Or
I mean, there's some instances he brought up. Yeah.
yeah,
I don't think, again, I wasn't as interested, back then. So, um, but I do remember some stories of different things, and I've asked him since I've got into safety about those things. But another thing is like I talk to my dad about everything, and so there was, for instance, I worked at Husqvarna, where they make their chainsaws and weed eaters, lawn and garden equipment, out of college, and the group before us was more of a safety cop mentality, so they restructured the entire EHS team. And when they brought us in, I was having trouble meshing with the maintenance team. I could, they just thought I was out to get them, write them up, whatever. And I just, man, I couldn't connect with them no matter what I did, no matter how I tried to explain. And so obviously I have a wealth of knowledge, and my family is, it's being a maintenance guy. So that's kind of where it started. I mean, from my very first job outside of school, I was talking to my dad about ideas, bouncing different things off of him, like how would you have reacted if your safety guy or safety manager would have done this? What are possible repercussions of, would I lose
yeah,
the maintenance team's buy-in? I mean, just all kinds of scenarios. I walked through those with my dad, and he's been a tremendous help throughout all this. So yeah, he did tell me some stories. He has told me some stories, some pretty significant injuries, and also there were some times where he bypassed the safety management team
uh
on a couple of things too. So he ratted himself out, but
oh.
because he would be like, well, you're dealing with this at work, and honestly, this is probably what I would have done, but it's not what should be done, and here's what should be done, right? So,
So yeah, leading up to that, the follow up question I got for you was: now that you're in the food industry, you got 3 different locations. You you work remotely mainly, and then all your locations are on the East Coast, right?
that's correct. Yes, sir.
So you're traveling from Oklahoma to the East Coast, what, once a quarter to see each location, something like that, and
Um, it depends. I've got one site that needs a little bit more assistance than my other two, and so I travel more to it, but I do at least visit them once a quarter.
to any of the scenarios that you and your dad have talked about from his time at Michelin, because it's almost like, in a sense, it's sort of the same industry, I would guess. Inside, it's not more construction. I guess it would be more general industry.
hmm
Is that what your industry's rated at?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so do you have any incidences that's ever come up that kind of related to what your dad and you spoke about before, and you had a better chance of resolving it right away, or kind of knew what to do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't say probably not resolving it right away,
Mhm.
but being able to ask the right questions, yes.
Yeah,
Just having talked through those things in the past, and even incidents I've worked in oil and gas, I've worked in general industry, and I've worked in safety software. So I've asked my dad questions about every single one of them, even if he doesn't have experience, even in the software side of things, I still ask him, run by things. But yeah, he, even to this day, like, if there's an incident that happens, and um, depending on the nature of the incident and what I can share, I will still run corrective actions, like corrective actions that are flowing in my mind, or questions, or just be like, hey, hypothetically, if this happens, these are the questions that I'm asking. Is there something else that I'm missing, or something else that, you working, put yourself in your shoes of Michelin. Is there something I'm missing? And so, again, he, from that perspective, he's a wealth of knowledge, and it does help with certain things, especially that, the same types of injuries in the industry. Um, yeah, 100%. It helps to talk to him, and he's, I mean, been a help with some of the things that go on currently. Um, even and my mom helps on the
Mhm.
compassion side of things, right? So, she's
Yeah.
she's a people pleaser, and a really good communicator. And so she's always instilled in me kind of the communication skills and things like that. And I think that's very important for safety professionals, is the soft skills. And I
Oh
think they're
yeah.
becoming even more important these days. And so I get that from her. And
Mhm.
then, so my critical thinking, though,
The
that comes from my
trifecta.
wife. So it's like
Yeah.
every
Hmm.
person in my life. Yeah. So
Yeah.
every person in my life has influenced me. And my sister, we she, I get she helps me hone in on like the competitive spirit, the continuous learning, right? Because she's always learning, she's always doing these things too, and just to be able to keep up with her, right? There's a precedence there, and I've got to keep up with her. So everybody in my life really has helped, contribute to and help me learn all these different things that I still use in
Wow.
my job today. So
Well, so to your answer to that, not trying to put you on the spot here, but
yeah,
you basically answered the question that I'm fixing to ask now, and I want to know the old debate. So, what makes you more prepared for safety, college or
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah.
experience.
Dave and I have had this conversation many because we got a buddy of ours, real close friend, that he went to college
Hmm.
and he didn't have. And Dave was medic, but he's been on pipeline and stuff like that. And I came from the tools, so
Hmm.
we always kind of have this debate: is it college? Because college, you'll learn case studies, you'll
Hmm.
do scenarios, and you'll see incidences, and you'll write your papers, and you'll learn that way. But experience coming up through it and actually living it,
Hmm.
I think resonates with you a little more, and you
I,
learn faster. Your recall is a little bit quicker.
I agree with that. Like, so, and a lot of people would probably expect a different answer from me, because I've got 2 degrees and certifications and that stuff. And I do that
Yeah.
for continuous improvement, because I owe it to the people that I'm trying to keep safe, and the
Hmm.
environment that I'm trying to keep safe, because I'm an avid hunter and fisher, so I want the environment to be as clean and safe as possible too. So I owe it to them to continue to learn, and so that's why I do it. And so I do all those things to continuously learn, and to help set myself apart in the job market. If it, well, worst case scenario, if I ever lose a job or something like that, because I was laid off in the oil field, um, which was technically my first job out of college,
Hmm.
but I was only there for 2 months because I was laid off. So I've had to deal with that too. And so, but the first thing I do when I go to a new position or a new company is I spend the first 2 weeks on the floor. I don't do anything safety related. I spend the first 2 weeks on the floor, and um, with the workers, watching them build what they build, do what they do, trying to understand what the risks are, what I'm trying to protect these people from, especially if I'm new to to the field. I like coming into food and beverage, I had zero food and beverage experience. I mean, I had, industrial manufacturing experience, of like pumping systems and
And
lawn
that's
and
what you
garden
do now,
equipment.
right? Food and beverage.
Hmm.
So I know you work
Yeah.
for a butter company.
Well,
Yeah.
um, I yes,
Well, the
this
name of the
company,
company
y-
owns. Yeah,
yeah, they
it's
do.
the butter that I use. By the way,
Yeah.
I won't buy any other butter than this. But
Yeah, so I work for Kerry right now. Kerry Gold Butter is what you're referring to. Yeah.
okay, didn't know if
And
I
so,
could say it, but I wanted
yeah,
to.
yeah. So, they've got many different business units and things like that. I'm in their vinegar production. So it's kind of like think of a brewery or a distillery, but for vinegar is kind of how it's set up. Um, and so I didn't know anything about this industry. So I had to and this one was a little bit tougher for me to wrap my head around,
Mm-hmm.
because there's
Yeah.
more aspects. There's food safety, and that's
Hmm.
separate from or environmental health and safety, right? And so the quality standards are more food specific, and so it took me a little while to wrap my head around this. But I say that to say I spent a lot of more time
Right.
traveling in the beginning because I can't learn any of that. You know
Right.
what I mean? So I spent a lot of time up there at the different facilities. I think we have. I've been to the majority of our facilities now, and I learned something different at each one, right? So um, I 100% think that experience and being put
Mm-hmm.
out there in the field is the best way to learn. Now, I will never discredit, and I'm not, know you guys don't either, but I'll never discredit any type of certification
Right.
or degree or anything like that, because there are different things that you learn from there, and a lot of that is good. And I learned a ton through the great professors at Southeastern Oklahoma State. So, um, you know, they have a fantastic team, and they taught us a lot of things. And there's a lot of times there's a gap in between the field and the college programs, right?
Mm.
I don't. I mean, I think the gap could be bridged better, but I don't think it's ever going to be completely bridged because without that actual experience, there's really no substitute for it, right? So unless you do internships, which is a requirement at Southeastern, I don't know if they are at other programs, but that helps, right? Obviously, getting in there, getting in the field, learning from somebody that's been there. Um,
That's
but yeah, so
exactly. I
sorry,
mean,
that's a long-winded
and
answer to your
you have to
question, but
have both. You have to have that field experience, and you have to have some certification, college. That's a perfect blend because I've seen not just in safety but in medicine.
mhm,
I've went to school, paramedic school, with guys who barely studied, but they were rock stars when it came to the tests. But then once we had to do our ride time and hospital time, they were
mhm,
a deer in the headlights. And then, of course, you have, I've talked to people going, yeah,
mhm.
you know, trying to tell me how to do like a tracheotomy. I'm like, oh, you're a medic, a doctor, nurse, what? Oh, no, but I mean, I've watched YouTube, and I was like, is he joking right now? I mean, is he like seriously saying that he could do something like that
Yeah,
because he saw it? And I go, oh, okay, stay away from him. But no, it's got to
right.
be that perfect blend. It's got to, you've got to have
Yeah.
knowledge, and oh my gosh, don't get me started on that stuff.
He wants his
But
tourniquet.
that's a real sore subject. But no, but you know, you have to know. Obviously, you have to know what OSHA says. You have to know what your
Yeah.
state requires. You have to know what your company requires, and then for me, the biggest thing is to know your people. Is to get out
Mhm,
there, talk to your people. You know, you know, get
right.
that relationship with them,
Mhm,
because like you said before, you we're still in that trying to change the culture of the safety guy being the cop, or being the ass, walking around trying to bust people. But if you get that relationship with people and you talk about,
Right.
hey, their kids, you talk about, their activities, they like fishing, hunting, whatever the case, cars, you have a better opportunity for them to actually listen to you once it comes down to, let's talk about how you're doing this. I'm not saying it's wrong, but explain to me how you're doing this and how you feel that this is the safest way, to get that, again, relationship is important. You can't just walk out,
Right.
It's, if you're in a industry, you can't walk out in the field once a week and expect people to listen to you. Or if you're on construction, you can't walk around again once a week, once every 2 weeks on
Right.
your site and have people go, oh, okay, Dave, I understand what you're saying now. They're going to go, I never see. I thought you quit. I never see you. I didn't know you still worked for us. So yeah,
Right.
you're absolutely right.
Right.
So kind of speaking about that, you said been in safety with 10 years or 10+ years or whatever. In the 10 years that you've been in safety, what have you seen that's changed, maybe negatively or positively? Things that you went, man, 10 years ago, there's no way this would have happened, or I'm so glad it's starting to kind of go this direction now.
I kind of go back to soft skills. I think that's becoming more important. Communication, just building those relationships, spending time out on the floor, asking people about their families, talking to families, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like you said, we're still trying to transition out of that safety cop
Boom.
label that gets put on a lot of things. And I had a firsthand experience with that at Husqvarna and turning around a culture there. My manager, John Wesson, is a fantastic, greatest
Mm-hmm.
guy ever. He was, a mentor to me. And that's another thing, is finding a mentor, right?
Yep.
And they don't have, I'm not talking specifically about a EHS mentor, or, that would be in a perfect world, right? You want someone who has extreme in-depth knowledge of EHS and everything like that. But I'm talking about like a personal mentor that can mentor you on how to communicate to people, how to build relationships, and things like that. And that's what he was to me. And I've had another uh, great mentors too. Uh, uh, Larry Holdridge was another one of mine, and then our program director at Southeastern, Dr. Jones, Wayne Jones. So I think it's important to find a mentor, especially when you're coming in or kind of newer to the field, that can help with those certain things, and they can kind of help maybe point out some strengths and weaknesses on where to help you improve. Um, but yeah, I think it's to answer your question, I think it's communication, and really getting away from the safety cop to more of
Resource
the
and support.
yeah, coaching, influencing, things like that. Just being able to connect with employees. I'm really big on building relationships, and so that's one thing that I talk about every time I'm talking is building relationships, and that's a key fundamental thing, I think, to the EHS profession. So
I mean, you think about it. We're in a sales game, and how do you sell to somebody that doesn't like you?
Right.
So you can't go out there and be a complete butthole and
right.
ask them to follow our policies when
hmm
to your point in the very beginning about your public speaking, if there's not a passion about it, you're not going to buy into it.
Right.
If you don't know about it, like Jocko, have you ever read his book, Jocko
hmm
Willicks? Okay,
Yeah.
and I can't remember what chapter it is, but he phrases that it's my order. Yet when he was in the what was it, something bruiser,
hmm
uh, can't remember the name of his unit, but when he was out there, he was telling his superior, I got to know why. I
Mm-hmm.
have to believe in it first. I can't go out there and tell my crews what to do if I don't have that belief. So
Right.
you got to tell me why we got to do it this way, and you got to sell it to me.
Mm.
So we're the same concepts. I've taken that into the field. You got to get these guys and gals to understand that this new policy, regardless where it came down from, you have to sell it to yourself first before you can get anybody else to buy into it. Because
Yeah.
if you go out there with a half-assed notion and believe that, yeah, I can just tell them to do it and they'll do it, and then it's just going to be an issue because
Right.
you
Mm-hmm.
go back out there, they're not following it. You go back out there, they're not following it, and then now that animosity starts to build and build and build, and it's all because you didn't believe in it first, and you went out there and sold a half-made, half-frozen popsicle to somebody, and then
Mm-hmm.
now the rest of the mess is all over the floor. It's you got to try to wipe
Right.
up somehow.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
completely agree. And I think when I say communication, for us, it's communication to different people, right? Like we're gonna have to inspire and motivate the guys actually doing the work, guys and gals, sorry, actually doing the work. We're gonna have to
Mm-hmm.
motivate middle line management. We're gonna have to
yeah,
get in there with the VPs who want to talk, numbers and money. So you've got to figure out what drives each different person or group of
or
people.
section. Yeah,
Yeah, and really, so that's what I mean. That's why I think communication is so important because it's not for us. It's not just one level. We're not just communicating to one person. It's everybody at all different and it's different per position that you have at the company. But and a lot of times it's many different levels and layers of people that we've got to effectively communicate to and push those ideas and get signed off on.
so what in your 10 years going into the food industry and beverage that you knew nothing about, and as you're learning, what are some, give me or us like one or two or the listeners, 1 to 2 examples of one of the biggest pushbacks you had and how you handled it to not, it's hard to say. You don't want to have it to make it see our way. I don't want to say it
Hmm.
that way, but for the greater good, the longevity of what we're doing, this is why this policy changed. Things happen that is in a different part of the world,
Hmm.
it's a corporation. It all has to run smoothly, this and that. What, tell us something that may have happened to you that you got one of the biggest pushbacks on and how you handled that.
Honestly, there's not many scenarios at the company I'm with right now where I've had pushback, and I attribute that to spending a lot of time with these employees because, well, let's say these sites, they're smaller sites and when you're talking about people. So you may have 10 to 40 people, right, per location. So these aren't like
Mm-hmm.
massive multi-hundred thousand people facilities. So
Gotcha. Okay.
that makes it easier to meet with them, build
Mm-hmm.
relationships with them, even though I'm remote. Like when I'm there, I can spend individual time with just about everybody on site for the week that I'm there, right? So that helps tremendously. And I started that from day one. The first time I went to every site was building these relationships. So that has really helped me build rapport and not get as much feed or pushback at this current position that I'm in. Now I can speak going back to Husqvarna because they're a global company as well, based out of Sweden, so they've got sites all over the world. So obviously we got to. I mentioned the pushback from the maintenance team and all that, but I mean it wasn't just the maintenance team; it was essentially everybody because of the previous group of people that were running the EHS department. Um, I think the biggest thing that helped us was, yeah, corporate would roll out these procedures and policies, right? And then we're expected to follow them at the site level. Well, these corporate programs, a lot of times they don't. they don't fit like a glove for every type
Exactly.
of facility, right? So um, my manager at the time was really good about allowing us to, okay, we would get a corporate procedure. This would be, what we've got to implement somehow. Well, we would take a look um, together as a team first and be like, well, this isn't going to work here because number one, it's not applicable, or we're going to get pushed back here. But we also had a central safety committee where we had volunteers from every line, every maintenance, every team at the facility that we would meet, and we would run these corporate policies through. Like, hey, this is what corporates push down. What do we see as potential hangups? You're the respective person from your group. So do you foresee any problems with this? And then we would kind of tailor that overall corporate program to our plant and our procedures by getting feedback from the employees first. And that's kind of how we ran it. And I think that's important when you're doing any type of corrective action.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest things I've learned is to involve the people doing the work, right? I mean, I can write a policy and procedure or redo a policy or procedure from my desk in Oklahoma and push it wherever I want to do it. And, they're in New York or
Mm-hmm.
wherever, and it's not actually being done that way because it's not possible to do it that way and stay safe or whatever reason. So um, I know that's kind of a vague answer, but that's how I've done it in the past. Is just actually getting the people that are doing the work's opinion and feedback, right? If they give me their opinion, I'm like, I feel like that's more unsafe. Let's talk through this scenario real quick. Or, no, we can't do it for this reason. A lot of times people lose credibility or EHS teams lose credibility because they don't follow up or communicate, right?
Right.
Someone will turn in a near miss or something like that, and it just sits there for 6 months. Well, maybe you needed capital to fix this near miss, but no one's communicating that to the employee. So the employee, like, well, they don't even read these, right? Nothing's being done. So they get
Why
this
do
negative
them?
mindset, right? So even as something as I stress over communication. So like every weekly meeting that we have, like give follow up even on the stuff. If you had to submit a capital request and it's been pending for 3 months and it's month 4, say, hey, it's still pending. Like this is where it's at. It hasn't been denied or accepted, and then just be honest. Yeah, that's going to drive credibility and
Yep.
really boost morale, and people will know that you're listening and actually trying to get things accomplished rather than, oh, this is just a tick the box, just turn it in for numbers, for proactive numbers, right? But they're not actually doing things. So
Yep. Well, Chance, we're coming up on our hour. We do really appreciate you giving us the time. Listeners,
Yeah.
we hope that you enjoyed his story, where he came from. We'd love to have you back. With so much of your past and where you're at, we didn't even get an opportunity to really even talk about your current position, traveling
right.
to each job, what you see, some of the differences and challenges that you got in each one of your locations, especially having to manage it from remotely.
Mm-hmm.
So if you'd ever want to come back
No,
and
exactly.
finish that side of it, we'd love to have you back.
I was
Dave, have you got
disappointed.
anything
I mean,
for him?
I went into this podcast today thinking this is going to be incredible, and it was. Thank you so much for your time. You took some time away from your weekend to talk to us, and
Mm-hmm.
please come back, especially once you finish your other books or your next book and stuff. We'd love to talk about that and promote that. And and again,
Yeah.
you said the book that you have right now is on Amazon, correct? And that's where people can find it. And then and like Corey said,
Yes, sir.
we can work out something about getting some books out to people if they contact us and stuff. Because books like what you
Yeah.
written, and trust me, I'm getting one. To help people. Yeah, to help people, because I get questions like that all the time, and you've done the research and
There you go.
to help people to understand. Okay, I want to get in safety, and I want to get in safety for a good reason. I want to, I want to be, someone that helps people not only to be safe, but also to educate them for the future, employees that may come into the company and stuff like that. That's just a great resource. And again, I appreciate you taking your time to write that book, not just to be with us, but also to write that book and to help the new generation. Of course,
Absolutely.
for me and Corey, you are the new generation, but for your new, next generation, I appreciate that very much.
Well, guys, I appreciate you having me on. I'd love to be back, and I'd like to be back and not. I appreciate you promoting the
Sure.
book, but
Oh yeah.
not talk about the book. Talk about the other things like what I do and stuff like that.
Let's do it.
Anytime you guys want, I'll be back. I appreciate it, and again, thank you for having me on. This has been a blast.
Awesome. Well, glad you enjoyed it. Listeners, we hope you enjoyed it as well. And that's what it's all about, is just have fun, get to know people, and good luck with your moving. Hope everything
Thanks.
works out. And
Yep.
all the other rest. Hope that heals.
All right.
Keeps
I
healing in the
appreciate
direction
it.
it's going.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, once again, welcome, and thanks
Everybody
a lot for
safe.
tuning in.
All right.
We hope you enjoyed this
Bye.
episode with Chance, and we're out.
Thanks, guys.